10-year-old black genius challenges Harvard and wins. The lecture hall smelled of dry erase markers, old wood, and distant ambition. A place where the air itself seemed to vibrate with expectation. Room 307, Randall Hall, Harvard University, 8:06 p.m. Outside, the sky was bruised with twilight. Inside, rows of students shifted in their seats as Dr. Nathan Caldwell adjusted his cufflinks and turned to the whiteboard. He was tall, pale, and razor-sharp. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Tonight's equation," he said, tapping the board, "has remained unsolved by every graduate student who's attempted it this semester. Consider it a challenge. Or a warning." A few students laughed nervously, but not the boy in the front row. He wasn't supposed to be there. Malik Carter sat quietly, legs dangling from a too-tall seat, hoodie sleeves hanging past his hands, the tips of his sneakers frayed and duct-taped. He looked 10, because he was. 10 years old, barely 4 feet tall, and utterly transfixed by the chaos of symbols on the board. No one had noticed him enter. No one had expected him to. He had slipped in behind a distracted TA, barely a whisper against the mahogany walls. While most kids might sneak into a movie theater or a basketball game, Malik had slipped into a Harvard mathematics lecture while waiting for his dad, Jamal Carter, the night janitor. Jamal had told him to wait in the hallway. But when the door creaked open and Malik heard the wave of voices, the urgency, the order, the challenge, something in him pulled forward. And now he was here, sitting in the front row, uninvited, unnoticed, until now. Dr. Caldwell turned from the board to take a sip of water and noticed the unfamiliar face. He squinted. Then looked past Malik, perhaps expecting to see an older student in a hoodie. He saw nothing. A few rows behind Malik, a graduate student named Jordan Lee leaned over to his friend and whispered, "Is that a kid?" Malik didn't hear them. He didn't care. His eyes locked onto the whiteboard, a system of equations wrapped around itself like a snake eating its own tail. Nested functions, recursive constraints, Greek symbols so dense they looked like ancient hieroglyphs. Most students saw math. Malik saw music. He tilted his head slightly, the way someone might when trying to find the beat of an unfamiliar song. His lips moved soundlessly, mimicking the symbols. Then he did something that no one else in the room dared to do. He pulled out a pencil. It was a battered mechanical pencil missing its eraser, the grip half melted, scavenged from a bus stop bench 2 weeks ago. But it worked. And that was all Malik needed. He began to write, slowly at first, sketching shapes, lines, groupings. He wasn't solving the problem, not yet. He was mapping it, feeling its edges, rearranging its bones. As if the math had a heartbeat, and he was learning to count it. Next to him, Jordan noticed the movement and frowned. "Yo," he whispered. "What are you doing?" Malik didn't look up. "I think there's a pattern." "You're not even in this class," Jordan hissed, suddenly panicking. "You can't just—" But Malik didn't stop. He leaned closer to his paper, eyebrows furrowed. "If the loop re-enters the prime interval, it folds the condition." Jordan blinked. "What?" Malik looked up, eyes bright. "The equation's not wrong. It's just tired, like it's been asking the wrong question." Jordan stared at the paper. Then, without another word, he raised his hand. Dr. Caldwell looked up, already annoyed. "Yes? I think someone might have found a pattern." Caldwell arched a brow. "Someone?" Jordan hesitated. "The kid. Up front." The room collectively turned. Chairs squeaked. Whispered voices stopped. All eyes landed on the boy who should not have been there. Caldwell's gaze dropped like a guillotine. His lips thinned. "Stand up." Malik stood. "What's your name?" "Malik." "Malik what?" "Malik Carter." "And why are you sitting in my classroom, Malik Carter?" "My dad works here. He asked me to wait." "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see." "And the paper?" Malik hesitated, then held it up. Caldwell walked down the steps slowly, each step a punctuation mark in silence. When he reached Malik, he took the paper without a word. He scanned it. 1 minute. 2. His expression unreadable. Then, softly, almost too softly to hear, he muttered, "Interesting." "I wasn't trying to interrupt," Malik said. "I just like numbers." Caldwell looked at him like one might examine a rare bug. "You wrote this on your own?" Malik nodded. "And where did you learn to think like this?" "Nowhere." "I just do." Caldwell turned to the board, picked up the marker, adjusted a single line of the equation. The class leaned forward as the structure shifted. When he turned back, he held up Malik's paper. "This," he said, "is not a complete solution. But it is terrifyingly close, and it suggests a way forward that none of you saw." He paused. "Mr. Carter, what are you doing tomorrow at 5 p.m.? Malik blinked. "Having dinner with my dad. Bring him. Room 406, don't be late." Then he turned and walked back to the lectern. The room erupted in whispers, but Malik remained frozen, notebook in hand, eyes on the board. Something inside him had just changed. He didn't know what to call it yet. But he felt it. Later that night, Malik walked beside his father down the long marble hallway. Jamal pushed a mop with practiced rhythm, humming softly to a song only he seemed to know. He hadn't noticed anything different. He thought his son had just been sketching in his notebook like usual. They took the train back to their apartment in Dorchester. The lights flickered. The heater rattled. The fridge hummed louder than usual. It was home, but Malik didn't watch cartoons that night. He didn't play games on his borrowed phone. He sat on the floor, cross-legged, poring over numbers. The old textbook from the church donation box lay cracked open in front of him. As the city slept, Malik whispered to himself, "I want to understand the world the way numbers do." And somewhere, far above, in a clean white office under Harvard's highest dome, Dr. Caldwell sipped cold coffee and reread the boys' scribbled notes under the dim lamplight. He didn't smile. But he didn't throw the paper away either. The next afternoon, Jamal Carter stood stiffly outside room 406, in a shirt too small across the shoulders, clutching his worn Yankees cap in one hand and his son's backpack in the other. He glanced down at Malik, adjusting the boy's hoodie collar like it would somehow protect him from whatever was waiting behind the heavy wooden door. "You sure this ain't a setup?" Jamal muttered, his voice low, eyes darting at the Harvard plaques lining the hallway. "Harvard professors don't call meetings over doodles, Malik." "It wasn't a doodle," Malik said quietly. Before Jamal could press further, the door opened. Dr. Nathan Caldwell stood there, expression flat as paper. "You're early," he said. "I like early," Malik answered, standing straighter. Caldwell tilted his head the slightest bit, then moved aside. "Come in." The office was not what Jamal expected. No ancient books or dusty clutter, just one long desk, 3 chairs, and a whiteboard that stretched across the wall like a canvas waiting for thought. The space felt more like a lab than a lounge, clean and sharp, just like Caldwell. "Have a seat," the professor said. Jamal sat slowly, knees wide, the chair creaking under the weight of his discomfort. Malik took the seat beside him, quiet but alert, his eyes already scanning the equations scribbled faintly on the whiteboard. "I'm going to be straight with you, Professor," Jamal began, voice gruff. If this is some kind of joke, it's not, Caldwell interrupted. He turned to Malik. I don't care about who your father is, or what you wore last night. I only care about what you saw. That equation. How did you see what others missed? Malik blinked. You mean the primes? Caldwell raised an eyebrow. Yes. That part. It just looked off, like when a song has the wrong note, and you feel it before you understand why. Jamal turned slowly to his son. You see numbers like music? Sometimes, Malik answered. They loop, repeat, but never the same. It's like patterns with rhythm, not just logic. Caldwell was quiet for a beat. Then he crossed the room and picked up a marker. He wrote a new equation on the board, simpler but tricky, then stepped aside. Solve for X. Malik stood, walked to the board slowly. He didn't reach for the marker right away. He read it. Scanned it. Tilted his head like he was listening to a sound only he could hear. Then he picked up the blue marker. Step by step, clean and careful. One pause, one mistake. He caught it, corrected it, scribbled a note beside the fix. Negative root collapses in real set. Caldwell read the note. His jaw didn't move, but his shoulders eased. Barely. You think like a theorist, he said. Malik looked at him. I think like me. Where did you learn this? Books. YouTube sometimes. And I peek into classrooms when no one notices. And that's it? No private tutors? No math camps? No, just thinking. A lot. Caldwell turned to Jamal. He's not memorizing. He's internalizing structures most students can't even hold in their heads. Jamal let out a slow breath. He's just a kid. No. He's an anomaly, Caldwell said, and anomalies don't wait for permission. Malik looked from one adult to the other, unsure what permission he was being granted or denied. Caldwell walked to the desk, pulled out a file. There's a privately funded program I oversee. No cost, no red tape. No guarantees either. The entrance exam is designed to keep the merely clever out. If Malik qualifies, he studies here. If not, we pretend this never happened. Jamal stiffened. What kind of trick is this? No trick, Caldwell said, but one condition. No second chances, he gets one shot, pass or vanish. There was a long silence. Jamal shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I don't know, man. He's 10. That's pressure even grown men break under. Malik looked up. I'm not afraid of failing. Jamal turned to his son, eyes wide. You sure? I want to try. Caldwell nodded, almost satisfied. The test is in 1 month, room 317. No calculators, no internet. Just him, the problems, and time. He handed Malik a thin black notebook. For practice or inspiration. Malik took it carefully, as if it were something sacred. Caldwell glanced at Jamal one last time. You didn't raise a prodigy. You raised a storm. Now it's just a question of where it lands. Back in their apartment, Jamal sat at the kitchen table long after Malik had gone to bed. The bills were piled high in the corner. A disconnect notice glared at him from the top of the stack. He whispered into the dark, as if trying to make sense of something he never thought he'd face. I just wanted to keep him warm. That's all I ever tried to do. In the next room, Malik lay under a thin blanket, flashlight pressed against the black notebook. Pages already filled with numbers and questions, scribbled arrows, possibilities. He didn't understand all of them, but he understood enough to know he couldn't stop. Something had shifted. Or maybe, for the first time, something had finally been named. It was a gray Saturday morning in early October. The kind of morning that sat heavy in your lungs, with a sky like wet paper and wind that knew how to find the holes in your jacket. Malik stood in front of room 317, the sleeves of his hoodie bunched at the wrists, his fingers tightly gripping the straps of his frayed backpack. Inside that backpack were two things: a nearly full notebook crammed with equations and scribbled thoughts, and a pencil case held together with rubber bands and quiet hope. Jamal stood beside him, dressed in his cleanest work boots and the same shirt he wore to church twice a year. His arms were crossed, but his eyes were restless. "You can back out right now," Jamal said. "Ain't no shame in knowing you're not ready." Malik didn't answer right away. He stared at the door like it might open on its own. Finally, he said, "I don't think I'll ever feel ready. But I know I want to try." Jamal hesitated. Then he reached down and gave Malik's shoulder a squeeze, hard and proud. "Then go knock 'em out, genius." The proctor was a bald man with glasses so thick they made his eyes look too small. He raised an eyebrow when Malik walked in alone. "You're Malik Carter?" "Yes, sir." "You're early." "I like early." The man blinked, unimpressed. "Desks in the middle." "Test is face down. You've got 3 hours. No calculators." "No internet. No questions. Begin when ready." Malik sat. He adjusted the sleeves of his hoodie, took a deep breath, and flipped the paper. The first problem hit like a punch to the chest. It wasn't hard. It was designed to look hard. An illusion, a trap made of elegant clutter. Malik didn't panic. He didn't start at the top. He started 3 lines from the bottom, where the function twisted in on itself. He traced it backward, eyes narrowing. Down the hall, behind a two-way mirror, Dr. Caldwell stood watching. His arms were crossed, his jaw tight. Behind him, Dean Veronica Bell, chair of the Department of Mathematics, tapped a pen against her clipboard. "He's 10, she said. "I'm aware. This test wasn't designed for children." "No," Caldwell said. "It was designed to keep the wrong adults out." "Are you telling me this boy actually has a shot?" Caldwell didn't answer. He just kept watching as Malik began writing, slowly at first, then with increasing certainty. By the time Malik reached question 4, the room felt hot, too quiet. The problem wasn't asking for a solution. It was asking for perspective. Why does this question matter? He sat with it for a moment. Then wrote, "If a problem loops infinitely, maybe it's not broken. Maybe it's showing you how to see time differently." He underlined the sentence once, then moved on. By hour 2, his hand cramped. He shook it out and kept going. The edges of the paper curled from the pressure of his grip, and chalk dust clung to his sleeves from the note Caldwell had left him the night before. Keep going. Don't chase answers. Chase clarity. In the final minutes, Malik reached the hardest question. It didn't scare him. He'd already done the impossible by sitting in that room. The rest was just math. At exactly 11:58, he set down his pencil. The proctor walked over, picked up the test silently, glanced at the name. Malik Carter. No middle name, no title, no connections. Just Malik. "Done?" the man asked. Malik nodded. The man hesitated for a moment, then said, quieter this time, "Good luck." Malik stood, his legs tingling from sitting too long. He stepped out into the hallway where his dad was waiting, nervously pacing. "How'd it go?" Jamal asked. Malik shrugged, but a small grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. It was like trying to solve a riddle in a mirror. "You answer it?" "I think I found the right angle." Jamal exhaled, laughed, and shook his head. "That's my boy." But Malik wasn't thinking about the result. He wasn't waiting for the grade. He was thinking about the silence, the stillness in his head when the problem finally bent, the way the numbers had stopped fighting him and started listening. That night, Malik didn't go to sleep. He sat on the rooftop of their building, wrapped in a second hoodie and a borrowed blanket, notebook on his lap. He looked out at the lights of Cambridge, the towers of Harvard glowing in the distance. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number, one line of text. You didn't just pass, you outscored every applicant. Welcome to the other side of the equation. He read the message 3 times, then opened his notebook, flipped to a blank page, and drew a door. In the middle of the page, he drew a stick figure of himself. This time, the door was open. Malik Carter's first official day as a Harvard student started without ceremony. No marching band. No welcome committee. Just a thin plastic ID hanging awkwardly from his neck and the cold echo of leather-bound doors closing behind him. He walked through the hallways of the Department of Mathematics with a quiet determination, the soles of his duct-taped sneakers squeaking slightly with every step. Most students didn't notice him. A few did double takes. No one said anything. Until one did. A tall junior with slick hair and a smug expression bumped into him near the bulletin board. "Watch it, kid," the guy barked without looking. "Sorry," Malik muttered, stepping aside. The student turned back, irritated, then actually looked at him. "You lost? This is the math building, not a middle school." Malik blinked once, said nothing. He didn't need to. Silence was its own kind of power. Room 211, Advanced Structures in Nonlinear Systems. His first class. Professor Sarah Klein stood at the front with a stack of folders and the patience of a coffee-deprived hawk. When Malik walked in, she barely glanced up. "You're late," she snapped. "I'm not," Malik replied. "I'm early by 4 minutes." She raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Then use those 4 minutes. Solve this." She turned and filled the board with a maze of nested functions and conditionals, the kind of thing that makes even graduate students hesitate. The room fell still. A few students snickered. A girl in the second row whispered, "Who even is this kid?" Malik walked forward. He didn't grab the chalk right away. First he read, scanned backward. Took in the shape of the thing, then in one smooth motion he began, line by line. No showboating, no stalling, every mark had purpose. He didn't just solve the problem. He explained it with each stroke, his thoughts visible on the board. When he finished, he stepped back and said calmly, "There's a shorter way, but I didn't want to skip the logic." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was loaded. Professor Klein stared. Then she did something she rarely did. She smiled. "Correct." From the back of the room, someone let out a low whistle. Not mocking. Not yet, but close. At lunch, Malik didn't join the crowds in the dining commons. He wasn't on a meal plan. Instead, he found a quiet spot under a tree outside Sever Hall and unwrapped a peanut butter sandwich crushed slightly from his backpack. He chewed slowly, watching students pass like rivers. Then a shadow blocked his light. "Hey," said a voice. He looked up. A girl stood in front of him, glasses too big for her face, scarf clearly hand-knit. "I'm Tasha," she said. "I sit 2 rows behind you in Klein's class." He nodded. "Malik," she gestured to the grass. "Mind if I sit?" He shrugged. She did. For a moment, they just ate in silence. Then she asked, "How old are you, really?" 10. No way. Malik pulled out his ID and handed it over. She squinted. No way. He sipped from a water bottle with a cracked cap. "You gonna ask if I'm a freak now?" Tasha frowned. Why would I do that? Because that's what they usually ask. Or whisper when I pass. You don't look like you care. I do. I just don't show it yet. That evening, Dr. Caldwell found him alone in room 406, drawing loops on the board. Not for an assignment, just because he was thinking. Long day? Caldwell asked. Malik nodded. They laugh sometimes. Do they? Not to my face. Not always. Caldwell stepped closer. What do you think they're laughing at? Malik stared at the board. My shoes, probably. Caldwell glanced down, then back at him. Then don't change the shoes. Change the narrative. Malik frowned. What's that mean? It means brilliance doesn't apologize for showing up in worn sneakers. But it does make people uncomfortable. Use that. Malik was quiet. I think I want to teach someday. Caldwell raised an eyebrow. Why? Because most teachers only talk to the loud ones. I want to teach the quiet ones too. There was a long pause. There's a seminar next week, Caldwell said. Problem solving under constraint. You should attend. I'm not enrolled. I didn't ask if you were. I said you should attend. Later that night, Jamal sat across from Malik in their kitchen. How was it? Good, Malik said, then paused. They don't think I belong there. Jamal leaned back. They're not wrong. But not for the reason they think. Malik looked up. You're not supposed to be there, Malik. Kids like you, kids from nowhere. We're not written into their script. So if you're going to stay in that story, you better write your own chapter. Malik gripped his pencil tighter. Then I'll make it a good one. Jamal smiled. That's my boy. And across the city, Harvard's walls stayed tall and old and silent. But inside them, something had begun to shift, and it started with a boy who refused to enter quietly. Monday started like any other. Malik woke before dawn, washed up in the tiny bathroom with cold water, tied his shoes tight with mismatched laces, and rode the bus back to Harvard with a notebook full of problems scribbled in half-sleep. But what waited for him that morning was anything but ordinary. By noon, Malik had done the impossible again. Problem 47, an advanced combinatorics nightmare that had stumped seniors, postdocs, and visiting scholars, was posted on the department's results board. Every week a new problem was issued. Solutions submitted anonymously. Most were discarded, some reviewed, almost none solved. Except this one, Solution M. Carter. It was written in small print on a half sheet of paper, neatly pinned beneath the problem. No initials, no title. Just the answer. It wasn't showy. It wasn't signed. But it was right. For 10 seconds the hallway was silent. Then the whispers started. That can't be real, someone said. Wait, is that the janitor's kid again? By the vending machines, Richard Elson, a junior with perfect grades, perfect teeth, and a heart cold as marble, stared at the board, jaw tight. I worked on that problem for 2 semesters, he said. Now some kid with duct tape on his sneakers solves it overnight? Have you even seen his shoes? Another muttered. He's not a genius. He's a poster boy. A PR stunt. Look at how the school's treating him, Harvard's little media darling. He's not even a real student, Richard added. He's a story. It didn't take long. By 1 p.m., an anonymous email had landed on Dean Bell's desk. Claim, academic dishonesty. Suspected ghostwriting or unauthorized assistance. No evidence, no signature. Just a shadow cast with perfect timing. Dean Bell didn't respond. She forwarded it to Caldwell with one line beneath. If this boy is a fraud, it's your legacy on the line. At 2:05 p.m., Malik was pulled from Dr. Klein's lecture mid-sentence. The room went quiet. Some students smirked. One whispered, "Told you he wasn't legit." Malik walked the hallway alone, heart thudding like thunder in a locked drawer. When he entered Caldwell's office, the professor didn't greet him. He simply gestured to the chair. "They think you cheated," he said. Malik sat, face blank, voice steady. "I didn't." "I know," Caldwell replied, "but knowing isn't proof. Not in places like this." Malik stared down at his hands. "What do I do?" Caldwell leaned back, folding his arms. "You do what you've always done. You solve the problem." That night, Malik didn't go home. He went to room 211, where it all began. He turned on the lights, pulled out the chalk, and began, not with answers, but with process. He recreated the entire solution from scratch, step by step. He didn't just show the clean version. He wrote the false starts, the loops, the abandoned routes, the moments where he'd been wrong and had to reverse course. He filled the board, then the second, then ran out of space. He added sticky notes with side arguments, scribbled notes in the margins, even drew a graph to illustrate the turning point where intuition met logic. At 3:47 a.m., exhausted and chalk-dusted, he taped a message to the wall. "I don't need you to believe the answer. I need you to believe I walked the road." By morning, Tasha had seen it. She took a photo and posted it to the student message board. Caption: "This is what genius looks like." Not polished, not perfect, just real. It spread fast. 1,000 views by noon. By evening, the image was printed and pinned next to the faculty lounge espresso machine. Caldwell didn't say anything, but he found Dean Bell in her office. She looked up, holding the printed photo. "He made me believe," she said quietly. 2 days later, an official email was sent to the entire department. No evidence of misconduct. All work original, case closed. But that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was what happened the next morning. Malik walked into class, and nobody laughed. Not because he silenced them, but because they had seen it now. The layers, the effort, the mind behind the myth. Even Richard couldn't argue with the math written in plain chalk. Not anymore. That night, Caldwell found Malik sitting on the steps outside the math building. "You did it," he said. Malik didn't look up. "No, I proved it." "That's different." Caldwell paused. "And what did it cost?" Malik thought for a long moment. "Trust," he said. "But maybe not mine." Later that night, alone in his apartment, Malik opened a new page in his notebook. He didn't write numbers. He wrote a single sentence. "Brilliance is only visible when someone is willing to look through the dust." Harvard had a list, not a public one, not on a website. But everyone in the math department knew it existed. 10 problems. Legendary. Unspeakably complex, unsolved for decades. Some were considered impossible. Others simply forgotten. They lived on as whispered challenges, etched in the culture like scars. Problem 6 was the oldest. A topological dual-state paradox involving time-variable graphs. Most professors skipped it entirely, calling it elegant but unworkable. Dr. Caldwell once described it as math's version of a mirage, beautiful but useless to chase. Malik Carter didn't mean to find it. He had wandered into the restricted section of the faculty library after hours, following a thread of thought that wouldn't leave him alone. A drifting curiosity. A whisper he couldn't silence. He found it buried in a dusty, leather-bound notebook, wedged between philosophy texts no one had touched in years. The handwriting was old, looping, nearly faded. A note in the margin read, "If time flows both forward and inward, where do the endpoints meet? Malik blinked. "They don't," he whispered. And just like that, something shifted. He didn't tell Tasha. Didn't text Caldwell. He went straight home, taped sheets of paper across his bedroom wall, and worked in silence for 3 straight nights. No sleep. No distractions. He mapped loops with colored pens from the dollar store, used thread from his dad's toolbox to connect points on his makeshift wall map. The room looked less like a study space and more like a conspiracy theory in motion. It didn't come to him all at once. It came in a storm. Small insights, subtle curves, a diagram that didn't close. Then one that folded. A realization that time, when plotted in reverse recursion, wasn't circular. It was converging. On the 3rd night, hands trembling, Malik wrote the final line of the proof on a single page. Then printed it, unsigned, no flourish. Just a white envelope slipped under Caldwell's office door at dawn. The next morning, Caldwell found it. He read the first few lines. Stopped. Read again, then sat down. Not because he was tired, but because standing made it feel less real. He carried the proof to Dean Bell without a word. She skimmed it. Eyes narrowed. "Is this his?" Caldwell nodded once. Her hands shook. That afternoon, a faculty review session was convened. Quietly, without announcement. 5 professors, 1 chalkboard, no media. No students, except one. Malik sat alone in the back, legs swinging just short of the floor, watching the room fill with tension. Finally, a professor cleared his throat. "Malik Carter." He stood. "Would you mind walking us through your solution?" He nodded. And for the first time, Harvard saw him not as a story, or a prodigy, or a whisper in the halls, but as a force. He walked slowly to the board, picked up the chalk with steady fingers, and began. He didn't perform, he translated. Every symbol had a purpose. Every step was a bridge. He explained the paradox not by unraveling it, but by folding it back into itself, like a Mobius strip. The room didn't blink. They didn't breathe. Dean Bell, known for her ruthless composure, whispered when he finished, "I taught here for 27 years, and I've never seen an answer turn into art." No one applauded. Not out of disrespect, but because the moment didn't allow it. Later that night, Malik sat under the same tree where he first had lunch with Tasha. She found him. "You did it," she said. He looked down. "I saw something no one else wanted to look at." She shook her head. "That's not what made it genius." He glanced at her. "Then what did?" "You didn't solve it to prove anything," she said. "You solved it because you couldn't not try." He didn't respond, just pulled out his notebook. In the corner of the last page, he scribbled a line. "Even closed doors make sound when you knock loud enough." Across campus, the bulletin board lit up again. Problem 6. Resolved. Monsieur Carter, March 3rd, 10:17 a.m. No photo, no fanfare. But for once, the world turned toward the boy who had refused to wait for permission. And this time, it listened. By Friday, the story had gone viral. The boy who solved Harvard's hardest problem. The 10-year-old black genius. The janitor's son who outthought a generation. The title changed depending on the outlet, but the face stayed the same. Malik Carter, quiet eyes and taped sneakers, staring from every screen like he didn't belong to the world that now demanded him. The interview had started as a student project. A senior in journalism, Olivia Park, just wanted a few quotes for her Faces of Harvard profile. She expected a quiet kid with a cool story. What she got was something far more complicated. "Can you tell us your name?" Olivia asked, recorder on. Just Malik. Your age? 10 3/4. Olivia chuckled. That 3/4 really matters? When you're the smallest person in every room, yeah, it counts. What was it like, solving the unsolvable? Malik didn't smile. I didn't solve it to prove anything. I solved it because it wouldn't let me sleep. He didn't rehearse. He didn't need to. 12 hours after she posted the clip, it had over 1 million views. By Sunday morning, 3 million. That week, offers flooded in. TV segments, endorsement deals. Companies that had never cared about math suddenly wanted him on their magazine covers. One tech firm offered $500,000 for a commercial spot titled "Break the Algorithm." He didn't respond. Because somewhere in that noise something broke. Malik stopped being a student. He became a symbol. By Tuesday, strangers waited outside the math building. Some brought camera crews. Some just wanted to touch the Harvard genius. Inside the building, professors started calling on him more. Not to test him, but to show him off. Malik, care to explain? Dr. Reyes would ask, even when the question wasn't his. He answered, because it felt rude not to. But each time something in him pulled tighter, like a string being wound to breaking point. Tasha noticed first. They're using you, she said over lunch, the wind tugging at her scarf. Not for teaching, for headlines. Malik shrugged. I asked for this. No, you didn't, she snapped. You asked to learn. They gave you a spotlight. That night, he didn't go home. He went to the roof of Pierce Hall. It was cold, the kind that made your bones whisper to leave. He sat there anyway, knees pulled to his chest, hoodie drawn tight. Dr. Caldwell found him there. They think I'm a miracle now, Malik muttered without looking up. Like I came out of nowhere, like I'm not even real. Caldwell sat beside him. Do you feel real? Malik nodded. But they don't see that. They see the headline. He pulled out his phone and held it up. The screen showed an article titled, "The Janitor's Son Who Outclassed Harvard's Best." I didn't outclass anyone, he said. I just outlasted the silence. The silence between them stretched. Then Caldwell said, There's a press event Thursday. Dean Bell wants you to speak. I won't, Malik replied flatly. You should consider it. No, Malik said. I already wrote her a letter. Told her I'm not a story. I'm a student. Let me learn. Caldwell didn't argue. He just looked proud. The next day, the event was cancelled. No explanation. No rescheduling, but Malik knew why. Later that night, his inbox pinged with a new message. Subject, TEDx Cambridge invitation. Message, 12-minute talk. Thousands of people. Say what you need to say. Malik stared at the screen for a long time. He didn't tell Caldwell. He showed Tasha. What do you think? He asked quietly. She took the phone, read the email twice. I think it's your chance, she said, before the world starts talking for you. The day of the event, Malik wore the same hoodie he'd worn when he first walked into Harvard. The same sleeves too long. The same corner torn. The same duct tape still holding one shoe together. When he stepped onto the red circle, he didn't bring notes. Just one piece of chalk in his pocket. The stage lights warmed his face. The crowd hushed. He began. When I was 7, I solved a math problem on a diner napkin while my dad cleaned the bathrooms. A pause. A ripple of soft laughter. I didn't know it was calculus. I just thought it looked wrong. He looked around the room. Turns out, most of the world looks wrong when you're not standing in the right place to see it. He pulled the chalk from his pocket. Behind him, a blackboard waited. He wrote 5 words. "What else are we missing?" Then turned back to the crowd. Sometimes the greatest equation isn't on a board. It's between who we think we are and what we're brave enough to become. The room stood, and this time Malik didn't feel small. He felt seen. The video from Malik's TEDx talk had reached 10 million views by Monday morning. His face was everywhere. News outlets, social media feeds, even the front page of the New York Times Sunday edition. People called him a genius, a miracle, a symbol. But Malik? He was back in room 214. No cameras. No spotlights. Just him and a sophomore named Brendan, who was on the edge of failing his class. "Recursive symmetry," Brendan muttered, eyes bleary from hours of confusion. "It's like math trying to gaslight me." Malik smirked. "Or maybe you're trying to force it to look like something it's not. Try stepping back." Brendan blinked. "You mean like, literally?" "Yeah," Malik said. "Sometimes when you stop staring at the numbers, you actually start seeing them." They spent another hour going over the same 3 problems. Malik didn't rush. He didn't judge. He remembered what it felt like to be alone with a question no one else could hear. And that's why he left the note. Midnight math, room 214, no judgment, no grades. Just learning. Come as you are. He didn't expect anyone to show. But they did. 5 students. One had failed calculus twice. One had never spoken in class. One had no listed address on file. One came with the words, "waste of potential," still ringing in their ears. And one was just angry, at the system, at herself, at everything. They sat on the floor, in chairs, in silence at first. But Malik didn't lecture. He asked questions. "Who here thinks recursion is terrifying?" All 5 hands went up. "Good," Malik said with a grin. "Then you're exactly where you're supposed to be." He drew a spiral on the board. "Recursion isn't about repetition," he explained. "It's about return. About trusting that when you come back to where you started, you'll know a little more than before." A girl in a hoodie, Sophia, raised her hand. "And if you don't?" she asked quietly. "Then you start again." By 1:42 a.m., Sophia walked to the board and drew a correction Malik hadn't seen. The room went still. He blinked. "That's brilliant," he said. She turned, eyes wide. "Really?" "Absolutely. I missed it." And for the first time, Sophia smiled. Not a shy smile, a real one, the kind that meant something had changed. At 2:07 a.m., they sat together, tired but full, pages scattered like fallen leaves. Malik leaned against the desk and looked at each of them. "You don't have to be the smartest person in the room," he said. "You just have to believe you're allowed to be in the room." No one spoke. They didn't need to. After everyone left, Malik erased the board. Not out of duty, but out of ritual. Then he picked up a piece of chalk and wrote in the lower corner. She whispered to herself in the dark until someone whispered back. Below that, Session 1. Complete. Midnight Math Society. He didn't lock the door. He left it open. The next morning, Dr. Caldwell found the message. He stood in the doorway for a long time, reading the chalk lines again and again. Then he turned quietly and walked away. A week later, Dean Bell called Malik into her office. "I hear you're teaching now," she said. Malik shrugged. "Not officially." "Good," she replied. "Official things tend to ruin the magic." She handed him an envelope. Inside was a certificate stamped with the Harvard seal, Unofficial Mentor Appointment Department of Mathematics, for reminding us that teaching is not about status. It's about seeing the ones no one else sees. Malik blinked. Dean Bell smiled. Well? He folded the certificate slowly. I guess this means I'm part of the syllabus now. She laughed. Yes, Malik, I suppose you are. Years passed. Malik stayed at Harvard. Then he left. Then he returned. He earned degrees he never framed, wrote papers he never bragged about, turned down titles that felt more like cages than honors. But every Thursday at 2:14 a.m., the light in that little room still flickered. Students still came. Some angry, some quiet, some broken. Some brave. And Malik? He still stood in front of them, chalk in hand, voice calm, eyes bright. Not as a headline, not as a prodigy, but as a reminder. That brilliance doesn't always walk through the front door. Sometimes it climbs in through a window, or sneaks into a lecture hall, or hides behind a mop bucket until it's ready to be seen. And when it finally speaks, it changes everything. If Malik's story moved you, if you believe in the power of unseen brilliance, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's keep opening doors for every voice that's still whispering in the dark. This is Voices Unheard. And we're just getting started.